Taking you up to 2 p.m., a little stock up, stock down with the Sacramento Kings, the young players for your Sacramento Kings. And let's just start here, Kyle. I felt like this is the most that we've ever talked about Isaac Jones, so I'm going to get him kind of out of the way. Stock up with Isaac Jones. Stock up with Isaac Jones. It's pretty simple. Like I said, if you've been listening the past hour, thank you for listening. And he was nowhere on my board, my radar. So shout out to him that's how you do it. That's how you force yourself on the radar. So we will kind of rock and roll with that one. If anybody disagrees, hop on the text line, 916-339-1140. Call line, text line. Also 1 o'clock. We are giving away tickets to see the Lumineers at Golden One Center August 6th. So you want to be around if you want to see the Lumineers. That's at 1 p.m. So stock up for Isaac Jones. Pretty simple. Do you have any thoughts, Kyle?
I mean, 30 points. Well, 60 points in 2 games in the semifinals was definitely wonderful. We've seen him put up, 40-point games in the G League this past season. Being an undrafted rookie last year, now getting a full training camp essentially for the first time is going to be interesting to see, because his contract is only guaranteed for this year, right? Mm-hmm. So it is a little bit of a, you got to show us something, right? Nimi Keita, who was kind of Isaac Jones before Isaac Jones, he spent 3 years between the G League and the NBA team, and after that they were like, hey, thank you, we can't keep you on a 2-way contract anymore, but we don't want to give you a full NBA deal. So right. He ends up going to Boston, finally gets that NBA contract. Hopefully it works out for Isaac in Sacramento, but to many of the points we just outlined, he's going to have to find a role on this Kings team that is not the role he's been playing for the Summer League team or the G League team. And in my opinion, he's going to have to be able to shoot 36% on 3-pointers, specifically corner threes, if he's going to have a role on this Sacramento Kings team. Yeah,
so I'm right there with you. I will go with stock up for Isaac, and really happy with what I saw. Next, let's go with Maxime Reynaud. I'm going to say, stock up. I know he's my guy. I don't know if it's as up as maybe I would have thought, and here's why. I think that he might be one of the only second rounders with expectations as high as he had them. So much conversation about him slipping to the second, so much conversation about, no, he's really a first rounder, that he dang near got evaluated like a first rounder. And I think he played well, but his expectations shot so high through the roof that I'm going to actually say that his stock is up, but it's not as up, and that's due to his expectations probably being a little bit too high. So I think it'll help him in the long run. I think we're all looking at him a little bit more realistically, but I think going into Summer League, and I didn't help, I was part of the hype train. A lot of people were saying, oh no, this guy's going to be crazy. Then he had that first game where he just went out of his mind to kind of start off, and we're all thinking, man, this is going to be insane. I do think he's going to be a good player, but his stock isn't up as much as some others because his expectations were a little higher than others.
Yeah, it's interesting because he did not star on this Summer League team. In fact, in the semifinal game, they had him on the bench in the closing minutes to go with the 3-guard lineup, the smaller lineup. And they did that a little bit against the Hornets, but it was harder to do that because they have, what's his name, Kalkbrenner, who is 7'2" and just putting shots up over even Isaac Jones, who is a large person, but is, Kalkbrenner for the Hornets was huge. So I guess I look at Maxime Reynaud as like, yes, the stock is up. if you get any contribution from a second round pick, then your stock is up. And we feel pretty good about the fact he's going to be a contributor almost right away, especially now that they've traded Jonas Valanciunas. I think their plan is for him to back up Domantas Sabonis and do some of the similar things to Sabonis. But at the same time, he was the fourth or fifth best player on the Kings Summer League team, which again, it is its own conversation of whether that matters or not. But Devin Carter was excellent. Nate Clifford was really excellent. And Isaac Jones, as we just outlined, had an excellent close to the Summer League. So you didn't quite see that, but you saw enough flashes to be like, that guy can be the player that they hoped would be a contributor as a second round pick and why people thought he would be a first rounder. So it's certainly not down, but it's like kind of about where we thought it was.
Right. And I just think it's really funny because it is based on the hype that's behind you and where you get drafted, because I could see a lot of people being excited about Maxime Reynaud, but then saying, don't be that excited about Isaac Jones, where, hey, I know Isaac Jones is older and has played a year, but even still, couldn't you make the same argument that somebody made on the text line if you're relying on Maxime? If I said, if you're relying on Maxime Reynaud for legitimate minutes, you're probably not a good NBA team. I feel like people would push back on that because of the cachet that's behind his name and the fact that even though he was drafted in the second round, a lot of people felt as if he should have been a first rounder. I had an agent tell me that he should have been a first rounder. So that would be okay. But saying Isaac Jones is going to get legitimate time, that's not okay. So it's just funny how we kind of look at these things. Ultimately, I think it's similar. I think if you're needing legitimate rotation minutes from Maxime Reynaud and rookie, and I mean legit, like 20. If you're needing 20 minutes from Maxime Reynaud every single night, either his stock is through the roof or you're not that good of a team.
Either you got a steal in the draft.
Yeah, one of the biggest steals in recent memory.
Well, I mean, there's one of these every year. I mean, Jalen Wells was starting on a Grizzlies team that made the playoffs, but
they scratched and clawed to the playoffs. And to that point, he was a completely different player. You're not wrong, but we watched it. He was a completely different player when Ja returned.
Yeah.
He just didn't know what to do with his hands. I don't know what I'm doing here.
Yeah, and maybe Reynaud's put in that position. I guess we should also probably just note he had the wrist injury.
That's true.
That kept him out for part of Summer League. So his first two games were better than his close, but he also had a wrist injury in the middle, so I don't know how that affects it. But I think to the same point, right, if Nate Clifford, if the starting lineup stays the same and you've got your gluttony of guards, and you have Nate Clifford essentially filling the Jake LaRavia role. You have Isaac Jones as your backup 4 and Maxime Reynaud as your backup 5. Either you've got a young core that's going to develop into a bunch of good role players, or to your point, you're just going to lose those minutes every time Keegan or Sabonis or I guess in this case Levine comes off the floor.
Yeah. So, yeah, that's kind of where we're at there. Stock up, stock down. Next on the list would be, of course, Nate Clifford. So Nate Clifford, another obvious one, stock up. Stock up on Nate Clifford. He was an actual first rounder, and somehow his expectations weren't as high as Maxime Reynaud, but he still showed up and showed out for majority of the Summer League. You saw a little bit of, okay, what's going on here? He was kind of out of control yesterday for a lot of it. I think they all started pressing once they were down. It was a really weird game how they even got down that big to begin with. It's just if you don't make, doesn't matter if it's G League, Summer League, or the NBA, it's a make or miss league. And if you don't make shots, you can play great. You can play, and there were some defensive lapses for sure, but you can play the best defense in the world. If you don't make shots, it's going to catch up with you, and it just caught up with them in general. And Nate Clifford, he kind of pressed a little bit between him and Devin, and like we said, the kind of point guard by committee thing, kind of a rough last couple games for Nate, but I still think stock up. Like I said, the oldest first rounder taken and he should have looked as good as he did. Saw a couple warts towards the end, but I think that's just a result of playing for as long as they did and as many games as they did. So I'm not going to hold it against him. I think he could be a rotation player right now. I continue to feel like all of these two guards are redundant, and even in different ways. I know Nick and Malik aren't the same type of player, but they're not far enough apart, in my opinion. So you got those two, you got Devin, you got Keon. The reality is DeMar DeRozan has been kind of masquerading as a 3 and sometimes a 4. He's really a 2. In my mind, he's always been a 2. So and you got Zach LaVine, who also is probably a 2. So it's just a lot of the same position. But with that being said, I think what Nick brings to the table defensively and the size that he has is going to allow him to make his way into the rotation. Stock up, similar to Maxime. Stock was way up, and then you keep playing, you start seeing why they went where they went, and that's okay. That's okay. I think he's going to get time on this team.
Yeah, they were talking about shutting him down early on in the summer league.
And if they shut him down, none of us would have had these last couple games to say, oh, man, he didn't look the same. So that's what I'm talking about when we have these conversations. And that's why I'm not going to talk to people, and go back and forth on how he shot it, because if you had shut him down, it's different with Devin, because Devin had a kind of a bad game to start off with, right? And we were looking for Devin to maybe, just find more of that groove. But with Nick Clifford, he did start out hot, and then we just saw, kind of it move in a certain direction, and that was him more so just coming back down to reality. That's all.
Yeah, and I think his is kind of the easiest to evaluate in the sense of, as you mentioned, oldest first-round pick at the Summer League.
Right.
Excellent right out the gate, was shooting like 70% from the field in the first 3 games. Obviously, he wasn't going to shoot 70% from 3 the whole time, so you could just look at this as a regression to the mean. Where I feel great about Nick Clifford is knowing that he is going to have to play a role and was drafted specifically to play a very specific role on this team.
Right.
And it makes me feel good to see a lot of the things that people were talking about, the length, the defensive tenacity, the shooting with a little bit of ball handling. You saw all of that on display. So you feel a lot better about him being the person that was advertised versus like Devin Carter, they drafted him and then, oh, by the way, he's going to have shoulder surgery and you're not going to see him for 7 months. At least with Nick, it's like they drafted him very specifically to fill the Jake LaRavia role, and it looks like that is what he's going to be next season. Yeah,
and now I'm just wondering, it doesn't matter, but if they don't lose Jake, do they draft Nick? Do they move into the first if they don't lose Jake? I don't know, because it does straight up feel as if we're going to lose Jake. That's okay. They were already kind of talking to Nick based on that timing and when things were happening for the draft. We have a contingency plan for that. And I think Nick is a better playmaker than Jake LaRavia was with the ball in his hands. I think obviously Jake, years of experience, and they're basically the same age, but Jake can do some things that Nick cannot do, at least not yet, and Nick can do some things that Jake cannot do, at least not yet. And Jake is not going to be handling the basketball on the Lakers.
No.
So he's not going to improve in that regard.
If there's ever a moment on that team where Jake LaRavia is ball handling, something has gone horribly wrong, right? With Luka, LeBron, and Austin Reeves, there's never going to be a scenario where he's primary ball handler, which I don't know if there's going to be a scenario for Nick Clifford either, because we didn't see a ton of it. I didn't watch every game, but from what I understand, we didn't see a ton of him doing ball handling. But at this point, even if he were on the floor without Schroeder, wouldn't you rather a DeRozan or a LaVine who's proven to be a capable ball handler and offensive threat just run ball handling in that situation? Just put Nick in the best position to do what Nick does best.
Yeah. So stock up for Nick, stock up for all 3. And all right, we have to do it. Devin Carter. Okay. And Devin Carter, it's a tough one. I think the easy out is just to say that stock is down, but I'm trying to look a little bit deeper because he did have some good moments. He had some good moments yesterday in the game. He was 5 of 16, but he had some good moments yesterday. He still had 7 assists, and he only had 1 turnover. So my fear is I don't know how that translates. And you saw when teams gave these guys more pressure to non-traditional point guards, they struggled a bit. So I don't know, Kyle. I'm trying to be nice on a Monday. Can I say the stock is the same? Is that allowed?
No, it's stock up or stock down, Allen. What is this stock equal? What are we just coming off the weekend? The stock market hasn't opened yet. What's happening?
I mean, it has to be down.
Yeah,
it has to be down.
I think you're lower on him because you didn't see the same signs that, or the signs of success that you saw from the other 3. Even Maxime, which again we talked about as a more complicated case, but Devin played well. I remember I was watching the game yesterday and they were down like 15, but Devin hit a 3 in the first half. And I was like, okay, great.
Yeah.
Was ball handling, came off, I want to say it was Cardwell, came off a Cardwell screen, buried a 3. I was like, excellent, ball handler. And then he took 3 more and they were all clanks. And I was like, okay.
Well, when he misses, he really dedicates himself to missing.
Yeah, he had one that like clanked off the back rim and went way in the air. There were a couple. I think Nick Clifford had an air ball too. There were a couple tough ones, but
I mean, he was a plus. So against the Raptors, somehow, and this is what's so fun about plus or minus. Devin Carter played 29 minutes. He was 3 of 10 from the field. He was 0 of 6 from 3. He was 2 of 6 from the free throw line. He was a plus 11.
Yeah,
with 8 points.
Such a weird sport. All of this is so weird. But this is kind of my thing with Devin Carter, right? So let's say they're going to have him run point a little bit this year. But just roll
and
with
if you're listening on the radio, I didn't make a face, but I kind of made a face.
You were like,
okay, interesting.
You were like going to counter my point before I even made it. Just the premise of him playing point on his team.
Continue.
So let's say they run just a traditional pick and roll action or pick and pop with pick whoever, Sabonis, I don't know, Drew Eubanks, whatever we want to do. If he's going to come off that screen and they're just going to leave him open for 3, which was the strategy the Hornets and the Raptors both chose in their games, was like, oh, you're going to run a pick and roll? We're just going to roll with the guy, shoot it. We don't care. And he was like 1 for 10 before I think he hit one late in the Hornets game. But basically it was like, if they're just going to let him roll off the screen and shoot off the dribble, he's got to be able to hit him at like a 40% rate if he's going to be a point guard in the NBA. You have to force them.
40?
I mean, I'm just saying specifically on wide open, right? Call it 35, whatever. You just have to play point guard well enough for them to respect you as a threat from the top of the key. And from the summer league, I only watched a little bit of it, but it doesn't feel like teams respect him as a scoring threat from the point guard position right now.
Yeah. I mean, even yesterday, they were all wide open. And that turns into he's open for a reason, right? And that's what they'll say. You're open for a reason. We've seen this happen with the Westbrooks of the world. We've seen this happen with the Draymonds of the world, where you either take the bait, you make a 3, and then you cuss them out on the way back, or you clank, or you swallow your pride, take the space they're giving you, penetrate the defense, get to the key, and kick it out, or do whatever you need to do. He's just and look, this is exactly what Scott Perry was saying to Brendan Nunez about him. He's just an unfinished product, specifically offensively. And I think that what they need to do is, I know the Josh Hart comparison came out for Nick Clifford. I think Nick Clifford is much more polished offensively, not even just shooting the basketball, passing the basketball, than Josh Hart. I think if you're Devin Carter, you need to just watch a ton of Josh Hart film. And Josh Hart is not an offensive guy. And I'm not saying Devin Carter can't be better than Josh Hart, but I would say that's where you need to start, because nobody knows what Josh Hart really does offensively. He has no bag per se.
But you look up and he's got 15 points.
Exactly. So that's what I would do if I was Devin Carter. I would say, I'm just going to be Josh Hart. I'm going to hit open threes. But again, Josh Hart doesn't have to play point guard. So that's I don't think Devin Carter, if they thought Devin Carter was going to get legitimate time, we still wouldn't be hearing about Ben Simmons, even though Dave kind of debunked it. We have that sound for you too. We still wouldn't hear about Ben Simmons, and we would not hear about Russell Westbrook, because there would be enough. There would be enough. I don't think they have any real plans for Devin Carter playing point guard. That's how I truly feel.
Which is tough, because then let's assume the roster is going to stay the same, where does he fit into the equation? Because you would have Schroeder, and then at let's say he's not a point guard. So at the combo guard, you've got Keon Ellis rotating with Zach LaVine. You've got Malik Monk rotating with DeMar DeRozan and Nick Clifford.
Right.
Like, this is the thing we were talking about before, is either they're going to have to balance out the roster, or someone is just not going to play. And right now it looks like that someone is Devin Carter. And that's kind of a rough situation that they find themselves in, because I don't know how they I don't know how they give him the runway to get better other than going to Stockton, which is not where we thought the 13th pick in the draft would be at this point last year.
I don't even know. Yeah, obviously that's
Keon's not even starting on this team right now.
No. And this is what Scott Perry is having to deal with. This is the kind of the mess that he's trying to clean up. And that's just the reality of where we're at right now. So I think it was always going to be tough for Devin to get playing time on this team, specifically once they drafted Nick Clifford, unless Nick Clifford ended up not being ready. I think leaving summer and seeing what Nick Clifford could do, now you're really wondering, all right, I don't know where any of these guys are going to get time, because they all kind of do the same thing. So Keon is at the top of that mountain for that help, but at least if you're Nick, you can be used differently because you're a little bigger than Keon and Devin. Devin is stuck between both because Nick can do what Devin does. I know Devin has a really long wingspan, but he can't necessarily do all the things that Nick can do. He's smaller, and he's just not as polished offensively. That's just the reality. That's not really his job. In a perfect world, Nick Clifford and Devin Carter are both playing, but that's not really a world that exists in the NBA unless you have Shai Gilgeous-Alexander as the other guard. That's not what the Kings have. So they can only have a couple guys like that and that redundancy kind of on the floor at the same time. So that's just the reality of the situation. We'll get to more stock up, stock down, but we want to address the Ben Simmons rumor and what Carmichael Dave had to say on the morning show about it, and what I'm hearing about it as well. Allen Stiles, Sactown Sports.
Sacramento weather is brought to you by Fidium Fiber.